Scotland, Alba, a place of wild moorlands, majestic mountains, noble castles and surging seas, ancient monuments, and a folklore so wide and varied. Today I am going to tell you of the Selkies, those strange human seal shapeshifters that have a myriad of tales in the beautiful Scottish folklore. Scotland is a place very dear to mine and Marc's hearts. Marc's heritage is very Scottish. And the country itself is beyond breathtaking. It is wild and untamed, a country with the richest heritage, history and folklore. We are so familiar with Scottish images of the plaid or the tartan, heather-strewn hills and soaring mountains and steep-sided glens, rivers teeming with salmon and trout, red deer roaming free among the highlands, and the villages and towns sturdy set upon the earth. The Scots are a proud people, and rightly so. Their country and heritage is unique and so intriguing. So today we are going to look at a creature from fairy lore that abounds in Scottish folklore. And this is the Selkie, a sea creature able to shapeshift from a human to a seal form by putting on their seal skins. These creatures are said to hail from the northern islands of Scotland and have their roots in the people that came to the country, the Celts, the Norse. Their stories are old and very many. These are a dual-natured creature, sometimes even downright dangerous to people, and yet in their human form utterly beautiful, both the male and the female, tempting to humans who often fall hopelessly in love with them and lose all their ethics and principles. The stories of relationships between humans and Selkies are many also, children sometimes born of these affairs. And yet the love stories are tinged with a sadness. Often the Selkie has been tricked into a love match, the smitten human, knowing that all they have to do to ensnare and keep the Selkie is to find and steal and hide the seal skin once the Selkie is ashore. The poor Selkie maiden or man then being trapped in human form. The Selkie will long to be able to return to their seal family and the grey-blue wild seas. But in many tales, the Selkies do find their skins and escape and flee back to the waves and the water. So what is their origin? The word Selkie derives from the Scottish Gaelic Selkie, meaning grey seal, of which there are many around the coast of Scotland. And so we see that there is a direct connection between the grey seal and the Selkies. There is an idea among some folklorists that the folklore of the Selkies is rooted in the Scots-Irish people meeting up with the Sami and the people of Finland who travel to Scotland wearing seal skin clothing and travelling in kayaks. Another suggestion is that with such small populations as was found in ancient times in the Scottish Isles, that the unions between the people that were too close in family created peculiarities in their visage. For example, in the Outer Hebrides Islands of Scotland, Clan Macleod were proud to claim Selkie human heritage, and this could be proven by the skin that grew webbed between their fingers, their hands looking somewhat like flippers. They were known to all as the Macleods of the seals. The children with skin conditions looking like scales would also be spoken of as being part Selkie and part human. Folklore tells us there are certain times of the year that Selkies can remove their seal skins and walk on dry land. In some tales we were told it was once a year, at Midsummer Eve. In other tales we are told they can shapeshift on every 9th night or every 7th stream. On these evenings they would remove their skins, come on shore and dance under the moonlight, and then rest upon the solid earth. It must have been a strange and very special feeling for these water creatures to be able to do this, the sensation of land and sand and grasses and pebbles beneath their feet, to be able to touch things once only seen from their home of the sea. And yet their true home is the salt water, and so if one of the dancers should spy a single human, they would all snatch up their skins, put them deftly on and flee back to the water. The women of the Selkie. These women are beautiful and entrancing. Human men who see them upon the shore fall in love with them instantly. They long to be with them, a yearning to possess them. However, taking these fairy women from their natural home comes with a caution, because to possess one will cause the man and his family to be subject to misfortunes at sea. And bear in mind that these communities were all fishing communities and at the whim of the strong, violent seas here. Also, the families could fall into sickness and often complete depression. And of course this is an obvious thing because a human has kidnapped a fairy creature and broken the boundary that protects both species. It is strange though that when fairies kidnap humans, they do not seem to suffer the same fate as the other way round. In many tales where the Selkie maiden is taken, it is by pure chance that the human man sees her dancing upon the shore and longs to claim her for his bride. He finds her sealskin, takes it, hides it, and that is it. She is his. She has no choice. She cannot put on her sealskin. She cannot return to her home, or her Selkie family, or her children, or husband if she has one. Instead, she must marry her human kidnapper, as only he could keep her safe on shore. And yet she has constant sadness, longing for home. Her husband will also slip into a depression because of this and a despair. He cannot make his wife happy. In most tales, one of their children finds her skin and gives it to her unaware of what it is, and at this she runs back to the sea, sometimes taking her children, sometimes leaving them behind. Sometimes the marriage has been full of love, despite the sadness, and yet still her instinct is to return home to the water. In the Faroe Isles, where Selkie folklore is also found, the Selkie woman returns to the sea, is not allowed to return to the Selkie family anymore, and she cannot return to land. A cruel result, and as you can imagine, a tragic end. The men of the Selkies. Selkie men are said to be extremely attractive and very seductive and have an almost magical ability to seduce far beyond the human ability. They crave human women, especially those who are discontented with their lives. These are easy targets for Selkie fairy males. The Selkie man will not remove his sealskin and hide it carefully on the shore. They will lure the woman into the shore, whether they are married or not, and then to the waves, and then further into the water, and then to the deepest seas. Women who were unhappy in their marriages, looking to the fishermen working the seas around Scotland, were most at risk, especially as these women would often be found on the beaches, looking longingly out to sea for the boats and their men. And women who went missing in these coastal places were often explained away by them having gone into the sea with Selkie lovers. One tale tells of a fisherman's wife who regularly met with her Selkie lover while her husband was out at sea. She would weep 7 tears onto the waves, and her Selkie man would know to come to her. Of course, children were also born from these lovely unions. The lady spoken of just now had children with the Selkie lover, and these children had telltale webs between their fingers and horned toes that needed regular clipping. Folklorist Walter Denison, who was actually a relative of this woman's family, attested to the fact that some of his relations still had these physical traits. Selkie children. The children of the Selkies are quite tragic figures in folklore, caught between human and fairy and seal. They are born of a forbidden or poignant love. or even of a forced, cruel relationship and are neither human nor fairy. They fit nowhere. They cannot be in the sea, as they do not have the powers of their Selkie parent, and yet neither can they feel comfortable among humans, as they will be spoken of in hushed tones. Selkie children, otherworldly, magical, unnatural. These children, though, are stunningly beautiful, a testament to their fairy heritage, and they are also known to be charismatic and alluring and have a wildness beyond nature. Some of these children develop the siren song of the sea, beautiful voices that when used for singing will leave humans trance-like state. In the tales, it is usually one of the Selkie human children of the family who finds the mother's skin by pure chance. They will take it to their mother, wondering what this could be. The Selkie mother knows, and she takes the skin overjoyed, her wild fairy nature restored, and run wildly back to the sea and her true home. Sometimes it is said she will take some of her children with her. Often she will leave them behind with their father, though, always to grieve the loss of their mother and the sad fate that befell the family. In a few tales, the Selkie mother is allowed to visit the children once a year. She already had a Selkie husband before she had been captured, but he would allow her one visit once a year to see her Selkie human children. In other tales, the children, when on the shore, would see a large female grey seal close to the shore, watching them with its huge dark eyes that would come close as possible to them. In most tales, though, the Selkie mother is never seen by the children again. Now we have learned a little of the Selkies and their ways, let us now look at the different areas and islands around Scotland and further afield who have Selkie folklore, and also the similarity and differences between these folklores. The distances between these islands and the commonality between the folklore shows us a definite path of trade and travel for our ancestors, as they took to the seas for adventure, to exchange goods, to hunt and settle. So the stories of the fairy creatures travel too, and I believe the fairy creatures themselves. So we will look at Scotland and its islands of Orkney and the Shetlands, and also travel to Iceland and the Faroes, and finally Ireland, although Nordic Europe can be found many tales associated with folklore too of the Selkies, where there were ships and boats travelling these cold northern seas, could be found Selkies and merfolk abound. In Orkney it is said that the Selkie folk are larger than usual grey seals, and this is one of the ways you can tell there is something fey about them. These are the shapeshifters called the Selkie folk. Virtually all islands of Orkney have the story of the Selkie wife, with some variations place to place. Walter Trail Denison collected a version from North Ronaldsay in which a bachelor of the island, a goodman of Wastness, as he explains, falls in love with a Selkie maiden. He steals her sealskin to make her his own, but after many years finds it hidden under the roof, thanks to the unwitting help of her daughter. She asks her mother what this is, and she returns to the seas happily. From Dearness, a tale tells that the stolen sealskin now is locked away by the human man in a huge sea chest. Apparently she had agreed to this, saying it was better for her to forget her Selkie ways. Once reunited with the pelt, though, she left. Back to the waters she went, and her human garments scattered as she ran wildly. One Orkney fisherman from Stromness told a tale his father, John Heddle, told him of a friend of his called Alec, who took a Selkie wife for himself. During a time of great hardship on Orkney, the people took to killing of seals for their meat, skins and blubber. But this was a very rare thing, a desperate thing, as this could be a cursed action. And this was when Selkies would bring their curses to the islands and the people of the islands. Ernest Marwick tells of poor crofters, the farmers of the Isles, who moved their sheep around the islands looking for the best grazing in such a harsh landscape. On the largest hill, one farmer, the crofter, let his 7 sheep to graze and carried on back home. As he walked back, he saw a seal and killed it. The next day all of his sheep had gone, but those belonging to the crofters who had not harmed a seal were still there, alive and happily grazing. Finally, there is a tale of a Neil MacCodrum, a fisherman as many of the islanders are. He was walking the shores of the islands in the moonlight when he saw upon the beach a group of beautiful women dancing, and they were completely naked. Entranced by this strange sight, he stepped forwards and trod on a piece of driftwood, and it snapped. The sound was sharp in the night. All of the women stopped in an instant, looked around, fled to a pile of sealskins, pulled them swiftly on and fled to the sea. But the fisherman rushed forwards too, and he grabbed the last skin, that of the youngest of the women. She begged him to give it back to her, but cruelly he refused, and the heartbroken Selkie had to return home with him and become his wife. I imagine many Selkie tears were shed upon dry land, and also in the sea at such a cruel action. In the Shetland Isles, the tradition is there too, that it is the larger seals that are Selkies, or half-fish as they are also known. Samuel Hibbert published in 1822 a tale from Shetland of a man there who took a Selkie wife in the usual way, yet this Selkie woman already had a Selkie man for a husband. Eventually she was able to escape and return to her love. At midsummer on Shetland, it is said that lovelorn humans must be very, very wary when near the sea, because Selkies will come to tempt them and woo them and take them back into the water forever. There is a tale called Geoga's Son, and in this story there are a group of seals resting at the Vay Skerries. Papa Stour, an islander, stalked them, hunted them, killed them and skinned them. But these were not truly seals. These were Selkie folk, and as their blood fell into the water and the tide swept higher and higher to take the murderers, one of them was left abandoned at the site. Now, the Selkies recovered in their human form because only their seal form of them had been killed and skinned, and so they were soon back to health, but their skins had been stolen. One Selkie man, who the tale calls Oliver Tynus, mourned his lost pelt so greatly because he could not return to his beautiful wife. His Selkie mother Geoga made a deal with the fisherman, the one who had been left on the beach and swept to the sea by his so-called friends. She promised she would carry him back to Papa Stour on the condition he retrieved the pelts of her son so that he could come home to his wife. The Scottish ballad The Great Selkie of Skerry tells us, I am a map on the land, I am a Selkie in the sea, and when I am far every strand, my dwelling is in Skerry. In Iceland we also find Selkie stories. Selsha Morin, The Seal Skin, in English, was published by Jon Arneson, a man of Iceland from Murdalore. Stole a Selkie pelt and locked it in a chest, forcing her to marry him and stay in his home. On Christmas Day, her husband is dressing for a fine festive outing, and in the pocket of his own clothes, as she was folding them, she found the key to a chest. She opened the chest and was able to take back her skin and return to her Selkie lover and true happiness. In 1641, Jon Gudmundsson the Learned wrote that the Selkies were elves, Marmenlair, who lived in the depths of the ocean in a cave, and this cave is lined with all the pelts of the Selkies who lived there. As with Scottish Selkie folklore, the same stealing of skins and enforced marriage is the theme, but in the Icelandic lore, the strange couple are together, married for 2 years, and 2 children are born, a boy and a girl. The Selkie wife hates her human husband, and sees her Selkie husband often swimming along the shore, searching for her. As soon as she finds her skin, she returns to her true love and to the water. In our final tale from Iceland, a man is nearby a shore cave and hears strange sounds. He ventures forth into the cave and finds a huge pile of seal skins. He chooses one and takes it with him as he carries along his way. Later that same day, however, he comes back to the cave and finds a beautiful woman there crying bitterly. It was her skin that he had inadvertently taken. As with all the tales, she goes home with him, marries him, and they have children. However, as with the other tales, this does not last. She finds her skin and is able to return to her true form and her true family. The story of Thaddeus O'Dowd tells us of his task of looking for a wife. But it had to be the right woman. And after this he would be able to be clan chief. But this was proving harder than he expected. He could not choose a woman for his bride. Each one had positives, but none was perfect or had something he just could not accept and live with. He, along with many others, was utterly exasperated, bless, eye roll, and decided to take a walk along the beach to clear his mind. And it was now he did find the perfect woman, combing her hair as she sat on the sand, beautiful and naked as the day. Next to her was a strange garment, and he realised that this must be a Selkie and her skin. And as he looked at her, of course, he was besotted. He snatched for her pelt, all the while telling her how he loved her, how he wanted her to be his bride, and of course she had no choice. They married, had children, and he was happy, and she was happy too, but less so. They ruled the land, they raised 7 children, but Eve, the Selkie woman, she would look at the sea with tears in her eyes. When the children were older, one of the sons of the house spied his father checking on the seal skin, and thinking this was a bag of gold or treasure that had been hidden, he ran to tell his mother about this strange thing. Eve knew what this meant, and she kept it quietly to herself until Thaddy was away. Now she found the place her son had told her of, and there she found her beautiful soft pelt. She had to return to the sea. The pull of her true nature was too powerful to resist, and she and her children ran to the edge of the tide. And then she realised she could not take all of them with her. She could not protect all of them under the waves. And so she used her magic to turn 5 of them into rocks, lying upon the shore that she could visit. And snatching the remaining 2 under her arms, she dove into the water and beneath the waves into safety. And so Selkies, there we have their sad and intriguing and beguiling tales. It's so obvious that as people travelled in their boats, the Selkie tales and Selkies travelled too from island to island, sometimes over the greatest distances and treacherous waves. Selkies are really tied to our fishing and island social history. As humans, we are intrigued by the elements that we cannot survive in, aren't we? It's no wonder really that the tales of waterfolk, mermaids and Selkies, and even the darker waterfolk like Jenny Greenteeth fascinate us. I'm glad the Selkies often have happier endings, able to return home to their natural environment and real families. As a child, the original story of the Little Mermaid always made me cry massively as she turned into a wave at the end, unable to live on land as a human or survive as a mermaid in the water, and so returning to the element that surrounded her. I'm so glad Selkies can often return home to their own families. Everybody should be in a home that they can love, even if not with family, with people that care about them. Friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I will be back soon with more folklore, or ghosts, haven't decided quite yet. Probably fairies. However, until next time, my dearest friends, take care, brightest of blessings, and remember, don't play with the fairy folk, and don't mess about near the sea on Midsummer's evening, or you may end up in one of my folk tales yourself.